Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into this quick explainer of the Carbon Dioxide Removal Leadership Act, or the CDRLA. CDRLA is new legislation that's been introduced in the New York State Legislature for 2022. The focus of it is on advancing and accelerating the development of carbon dioxide removal solutions that remove carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions that have already been emitted into the atmosphere. There's broad scientific consensus that in order to maintain a temperature change of 1.5 centigrade or less, there's no way of doing that without also removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. That means in addition to immediately eliminating or reducing future emissions and adapting to inevitable changes to our climate that are already underway and will continue to ramp up in the future, we now know that we have to remove billions of tons of carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere, as well as other greenhouse gases. There's many different ways to do this that range across the spectrum, from agriculture and nature-based solutions all the way through advanced technologies that are purpose-built to remove carbon dioxide and store it. The key thing right now for carbon dioxide removal, in order for it to play a relevant role both here in New York and globally, is that we have to scale up the most promising solutions right now. That's really what we have to do over the next decade. And not only will this increase our capacity to remove carbon dioxide, this scale up will reduce the cost of these solutions that currently are quite expensive but can be made cheaper through scale. And that's what the role of state procurement, which is at the center of the CDRLA, is. The CDRLA has a few different basic elements that I'll go over right now. The first one is procurement. This is the state buying carbon dioxide removal on an annual basis. And the way we've structured it in the bill is that New York will buy, starting in 2025, 100,000 tons of carbon dioxide in that year, and then scale it up every year between 2025 and 2050. And this will be done through a competitive reverse auction that actually puts a cap on the maximum cost that the state will pay. And what this bill does, recognizing that this is a new policy area, is that it would only authorize the first 5 years of funding, so that as a state, we can develop a program, modify it, and then at 2030, revisit and determine a course for funding it more fully over the remaining 20 years of the program. Now, one critical thing to note about the CDRLA and what's being proposed here with this procurement program is that this is not an offset program that's designed to allow polluters to continue to pollute. So this is not a program where polluting sources in the electricity sector or in other sectors can continue to pollute by paying for a certain amount of credit that comes from removals. This is a separate and distinct policy area that has its own separate funding and targets, as we'll explain. The other key piece of this is what type of CDR, or carbon dioxide removal, we're talking about. And the way that this policy is designed is it's standards-based. It selects for high-quality carbon dioxide removal and is actually agnostic or neutral when it comes to the specific technologies. And the way this works is that we're selecting for durability. We want to have forms of carbon dioxide removal that, at a minimum, are designed to remove and store carbon dioxide for a minimum of 100 years, and then select for those solutions that have even longer timeframes, even permanent timeframes. And the other key piece of this is that we need solutions that are verifiable, so that if the state is going to be buying carbon dioxide removal, we know that it is actually being removed and stored. So these solutions have to come with methods that can reliably verify that carbon has been removed and stored. Now, a critical part that's related to the selection criteria is that we want to make sure, and this is one of the benefits that you have from a centralized state-administered transparent procurement program, is that we want to make sure that no harm is done. No carbon dioxide removal solution that's selected can come at the expense of communities or ecosystems. Whatever it does for carbon removal, it cannot impose burdens on communities both within New York and outside. And so a transparent carbon dioxide removal procurement program will allow us to select for that in a way that the public is aware of. The other key part is that we want to do good. We want to make sure that if we're selecting projects, sure, we select for cost and carbon dioxide removal effectiveness, but if such solutions also add jobs, particularly in disadvantaged communities, if they have co-benefits for ecosystems, then those should be scored accordingly, all things being equal, above projects that do not bring those types of benefits. And then the last part is that we need to fund the first 5-year authorization period. And we want to do this in a way that doesn't negatively impact New Yorkers. For this bill, what we've done is we've identified a funding stream for the first 5 years that is non-regressive and is funded through the repeal of fossil fuel tax credits that currently exist. Specifically, we're focusing in on the repeal of tax credits for commercial aviation fuel, which by taking that away, that'll create additional revenue for the state that can pay for this program over the first 5 years. Aviation fuel is an appropriate target for this because aviation fuel is a very difficult to solve emission source in the near term that has to be accounted for in New York State. It's compared to gasoline or home heating or sources of emissions that are linked to agriculture and food production. By applying this to commercial aviation fuel, it's not going to penalize or burden low income or moderate income New Yorkers. So those are the 4 key elements of the CDRLA. This is a bill, again, that's been introduced already in New York that the OpenAir Collective and its coalition members aims to get passed and turned into law in 2022. If you are interested in finding out more or joining this grassroots coalition, please visit www.openaircollective.cc and please go to our join page in order to sign up and join this effort. Thank you very much.